One challenge on our campus is that we do not actively engage or meet with a vertical alignment team. We have done this in the past, but it hasn't been a large focus, and it's always been at the beginning of the year. We get back our STAR scores, our professional development days, and then we go back and we look at data trends, and then it kind of just stops from there. So if I could propose on a resolution plan, I would first start out at the beginning of the year, taking either part of a professional development day or making it an entire day, either way, depending on if the campus needed an entire day or if they needed a half a day. And I would have teachers break into their departments, whether it be math, science, language arts, or reading, going from K all the way to 5th grade if you're at elementary, or 6th or 8th grade, or 9th or 12th, breaking it. Well, high school's a little different, but breaking into the departments and looking at data trends. So I would even go back to probably the last 2 or 3 years, looking at STAR data, looking at benchmark data, looking at MAPS data, and categorizing the standards based upon what students are below grade level, approaching meeting grade level, and master's grade level, and looking at overall where do students fall below and behind. So for example, students typically 3rd through 5th testing data are low with finding equivalent fractions, and even going to 5th grade, that takes back to that idea of multiplying and dividing fractions when we go back to the basics of even they struggle with identifying fractions. So we can look at data trends. I would also propose to lay out a plan to have these vertical alignment teams, meet once a reporting category, like every 6 weeks, every 9 weeks, maybe every month, depending on if the campus was in, improvement required campus or not. And then look at, how does this data go back to the beginning, the fundamentals? How does, kindergarten fundamentals go back to 3rd grade, and how does that transpire? And then after we set up a schedule timeline and we looked at data and what standards were low for the campus, identifying 3 or 4 foundational standards that are consecutively low going across the board, specifically looking at testing data 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Then, every meeting we can focus on something different. So after we looked at the data, the next meeting can be, okay, what are we doing now this year so our data could be different for next year? How can introducing fractions in 1st grade affect finding equivalent fractions in 3rd grade? How are we taking that one step above? If we are reportingly low in fractions and equivalent fractions in 3rd, and adding fractions in 4th, and multiplying fractions in 5th, how can we create a streamline of we're going to support that all the way up, and what we're doing is not working, and how can we relate that? So that's definitely where teachers can come together and discuss strategies that way. I think overall our biggest plan is that we don't meet to discuss data trends, and I think that sometimes it falls back to a lot of times campuses don't. We fall into our grade levels and we discuss data trends in our PLCs, but we don't discuss trends across the board, all the time. We do it one time a year or twice a year before benchmarks and before STAR, and that's kind of it, and we leave it there. But I think that if we go back and look at, if these trends are continuing even after these kids are gone, maybe it's something that us teachers need to come together and think about, what am I doing that I can change?